Welcome to the second installment of the Flipping the Staff meeting. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to do PLCs this year, and also we're going to be talking about student supports and how we're going to provide time for students to get support this coming school year. We are in year 2 of our PLCs, and I was extremely happy about our progress and the work that was accomplished last year during our PLC time. Yet at the same time, we're introducing new technology on a broad scale into our school. So I wanted to create some new options for some of our teachers so that we could use each other and learn as basically a professional learning community about how to implement our iPads into our classroom. So we're going to talk about a couple new options that we'll have for our teachers during our PLC time. What we're going to do this year is we're going to provide a couple of options for our teachers. Option 1 is teachers can use their PLC time basically the exact same way they used it last year. They can meet with the same team, they can set up SMART goals just like they had before, provide formative assessment, do all the same things, go through the same PLC process as teams did last year. If you feel like things are going well and you were looking forward to this year and working with your team, we want to give you that option to be able to do that. Our second option is to have our PLC teams created around different instructional practices. So rather than all of the math teachers meeting together just because they teach math, we're going to have teachers meet around instructional practices they want to learn about and implement into their classrooms. Some options for your PLC team to focus on are things like teaching with Google Apps or student products with iPads, formative assessment with iPads. We're using apps like Nearpod and Socrative to implement formative assessments on a regular basis. You could research in standards-based grading to see how that might work in your classroom. You could have students creating screencasts demonstrating their knowledge based on their recordings, and you could check and see if they're understanding based on those recordings. You could research flipping the classroom, where you could even do some flipped classrooms with a team of teachers where you either make your videos or find videos so that students are learning some of the content before they get to class and then coming into class and using that content or working with each other to practice what they've learned. You could learn how to differentiate instruction using iPads. You can learn more about Edmodo and how to effectively use that in your classroom. I'm also open to whatever other ideas you have to learn about how to implement your iPads in the classroom or to help students learn the material more effectively using technology. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do on our second Institute Day is decide which option you're going to choose. So I really want you to think about which one you'd prefer to do. Would you rather continue to work your work from your PLC time last year, or would you like to start focusing on some of these new instructional practices? So please be thinking about which of these options you'd like to choose, whether it be option 1 or option 2, and then within option 2, which of the instructional practices do you want to focus on? And from there, what we'll do is we'll create PLC teams on that second day and begin our PLC work. Some expectations I want to set about these, especially the new optional PLC topics, is the teacher should be in teams of between 3 and 5. If there's a team of 2, that's okay, but I don't want any teams to be larger than 5. As soon as you get larger than 5, you have a hard time getting people's feedback, and so we want to keep them to groups between 3 and 5. If you get 6, I would prefer that they be 2 groups of 3 rather than 1 group of 6. We're going to go through 9-week cycles, so whatever you decide, if you want to decide on one particular topic, you go through that for 9 weeks and then possibly change it after that 9 weeks. If your team doesn't feel like it's kind of done with their learning or their implementation of that particular strategy, they can continue for another 9 weeks, but we're going to kind of go in 9-week cycles. Teachers are still going to be expected to go through a PLC process similar to last year, and we'll go over that PLC process during our time together on probably August 19th. But it's going to be similar to last year, where you have to go through a cycle where you're going to set some goals, you're going to have some ways to check whether or not what you're doing is working. And lastly, teachers should really connect their work to student learning. Always ask yourself, How do we know that what we're doing is helping students learn? And that's the evidence or the measurable part of the SMART goal that you set for your PLC team. The next thing I'd like to talk about is student support time. Historically at 2:55, the final bell would ring and it would be considered after school. So anything that a student would be asked to do after that time would be considered after school. What I would like to do is I would like to change the culture a little bit. Since our buses don't leave until 3:10, I would like to say that between 2:55 and 3:05 is still during school. So any help a student would receive wouldn't be after school, but it would be during school. So what I want to do is protect the time between 2:55 and 3:05 so that students can get the additional support that they need. Now, if a student is struggling, a teacher could require a student to come during student support time to get the extra help that they need. So this is how we're thinking this could work. At 2:53, the final bell would ring for the day. At 2:53, a teacher would close the door, pray at the end of the day, and then once the prayer is over, a student would leave. We'd maintain the 2:55 bell, and the 2:55 bell would indicate to other students that if they need to go to required support, that's the time in which they need to be there. We won't be marking tardies or anything like that, but we want to maintain that bell to tell students that they need to be at the required support time. So immediately after that, they pray, they go to their support time, and students that ride the bus would stay there till 3:05, and the other students that don't need to ride the bus would then stay till 3:10 or possibly even later if they still need additional help. Now, all communication will be between the student and the teacher, so a teacher can keep track of whether or not a student attended or not. We're not going to use it as a discipline issue at this point, but I would recommend that if a teacher requires a student to come and they don't come a couple times, that communication would then go home to the parents. So they know that we've been trying to help them and they have been choosing not to attend the quote required support time. You could use this short amount of time in a few ways. You could use it for one-on-one tutoring. You can use it as small group tutoring. You could use that time as reassessment or even alternative reassessment if you want to sit down and have a conversation with a kid to check whether or not they're understanding. If they bombed a test and you really feel like they understood it, it might be a good opportunity or a good time to have them reassess. Now, we recognize the fact that some students are going to need multiple supports. There might be a student that needs help in both science and Spanish and not just science alone. So we've created this priority list of days and subject areas. So for example, if a student needs help in both science and Spanish and it lands on a Thursday, they would then have to go to science. Now, this doesn't work perfectly, obviously, because if a student does need help in science and Spanish and it's a Tuesday, neither one of those subject areas are a priority on that particular day. So we're going to have to communicate with one another as teachers to make sure that students are going where they need to go during that support time. What we're going to work on is we're creating a Google Doc of sorts to make sure we have that information and share that information amongst ourselves. Ultimately, a teacher can structure this time any way that they see fit, any way they feel like is going to be best for their students. If a teacher wants to create some, quote, required days and then some voluntary days, they can do that. So if, Tuesday and Thursday are the required days, so if a student's required to come, they have to come on either Tuesday or Thursday, which leaves open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, time for students who are choosing to get help on their own to come in and get help. You can make required days every day. It totally depends on how you feel like that time is going to be best used for your students. I would consider having students that are struggling attend semi-regularly until their grade reaches an acceptable level. Again, this is not after school time. This is time built in the school day for students to get support. Now, I've spoken with Brian Glover about not starting practice until 3:15 or later, so our expectation of our coaches and even our activities will be that won't start until after 3:15 to allow students to get the support that they need up until 3:05 or even 3:10 so that they can be successful. I know there'll probably be a lot of questions about this. We will spend a little bit of time during our Institute days answering questions and refining this so that it works the best. I know it's not perfect, it's not ideal, it's probably not enough time, but it's what we have right now, and we want to make sure we leverage the time during the school day to help our kids learn.